Cabinet this afternoon. Before I move on to the agenda items, can I just draw your attention to the, which isn't on the screen but should be, but nevertheless, you know the rules and you know the advice should there be any form of fire or emergency procedure.
We just check it. Fine.
Right. Okay, so Cabinet members, I'm sure, are familiar with the necessary course of action should we face any emergency situation. If the fire alarm sounds, obviously please leave through the front of the Council House where you came in and gather at the other side of the Council House car park. The last thing which I say on each occasion, please make sure if you have your mobile phones with you, it is switched off or to silent, please. Right, let's go on to the agenda then. First item is apologies. I'm aware Councillor Nicholson, of course, has sent his apology. I think apart from that, everyone is here. So if you record that, please, Amelia, thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. Does anyone have any items of which they want to make a declaration about in terms of anything on this afternoon's agenda? No declarations? Right, thank you very much. Now, the minutes of the last meetings, plural, are contained in your supplementary pack, which you will have had on pages 1 to 4, and they're the minutes of our meetings of the 13th and the 20th of June. Can I please ask you to confirm that you're happy with them and they are a correct record? Yes. Everyone happy?
Yes.
Fine, thank you very much. There are no questions from members of the public, and I have no items of Chair's urgent business, so we can move to the next item on the agenda, which is the Health Improvement Contract Award. And can I please ask Councillor Mrs Bowyer to introduce this item? And I'm conscious that we have Ruth Harrell, our Director of Public Health, with us at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. The improvement of the health and well-being of our local residents is a statutory responsibility of the local authority as described in the Health and Social Care Act of 2012 and the Care Act of 2014. It's also central to our ambitions of being a vibrant city where an outstanding quality of life is enjoyed by everyone and of reducing health inequalities. The prevention of ill health is a priority not for us but for the whole of the health and care system, and is an integral part of the Sustainability and Transformation Plan, which seeks to embed prevention in all areas and to upscale the delivery of prevention services. This report is the culmination of a year's collaborative work to procure an integrated health improvement service to best meet the needs of local people and to provide an extended offer and range of ways and settings in which people can be supported to improve their health and well-being. The award of this contract confirms our commitment to health improvement, to the prevention of ill health and to the reduction of health inequalities. Ruth, I don't know if you want to add any more.
Thank you. I think you've probably covered off all of the key points there. I suppose just to reiterate that this service specification has been worked up fully to support the wellbeing part of our integrated health and wellbeing commissioning plans, and is fully in line with that. And it's in line with our vision for promotion of health and wellbeing in the city, whereby we'll be working very closely with our community and voluntary sector colleagues to make sure that the offer we give is as broad as we can across the population, but is also targeted most to our populations in need. I think the paper sets out the process that we took around that. The service specification was drawn up with very clear criteria, as you will see within the paper and as Councillor Boyer has described. A full OG process was carried out, as you will see, and the tender evaluation methodology is clearly set out in that document as well. And what we have done here is identified a financial envelope which we feel that we can spend on this particular programme, which comes from the Ring-Fence Public Health Grant, and then we asked potential providers in their proposals through the tender to explain how they would use that money to best meet the health and wellbeing needs of the population.
Thank you, Ruth. That's very helpful. Anybody got any questions for Linda or Ruth on this issue? That's good, because I've got one in that case. Ruth, I mean, this is clearly a very important part of our work, and it's sort of those building blocks that, you know, we try to focus on as we try to sort of encourage healthier lifestyles and all the rest of it. And I see you've listed the sort of areas that you want to focus on page 7 there. There are sort of 6 or 7 areas. Given that this is a programme of works over more than one financial year, are you intending to prioritise anything in one particular year or years, or is it going to be a sort of a constant sort of emphasis on all those subjects all the time?
On the whole, we'd expect all of those topics to be covered all the time. But we would expect to develop and evolve the programme as we go through the years, and this will be delivered in line with Thrive Plymouth. So, for example, we would anticipate that there might be a focus around one of the last but one point going forward next year around good mental health and emotional well-being. And so we would expect the provider who is successful in this bid to be working very closely with us there. But on the whole, all of those topics should be covered. We know that often people who have one of those risk factors for poorer health and well-being actually have multiple of those. So our aim at the moment is very clearly that we will tackle multiple risk factors at all possible opportunities, really.
And just to finish off then, how do we intend to sort of measure what I hope will be our performance, which is going in the right direction? How do we intend to measure that and report against that?
So we have a set of specific points that we're measuring against on an ongoing basis, which are operational. So those things such as the number of programmes they've managed to run, and the number of people that they've attracted onto them. So things like smoking cessation, for example, the number of people that they've seen through that service. And then we build that picture up to look at those medium-term outcomes. So, for example, people who've managed to quit successfully at the end of the programme of support. And then we look at the longer-term outcome measures. And that part of it is done through our integrated scorecard, which looks at the commissioning, at the integrated commissioning of health and wellbeing across the system and pulls those all together. So obviously all of those build together to our overall aim, which is improving the health and reducing the gap in inequalities across the population.
Any other questions? Right, can I just draw your attention to a Part 2 paper which is included with this afternoon's agenda papers. I will assume that you have read and understand the Part 2 paper, because I'm really keen that we take these decisions under Part 1 circumstances in public. So without further ado then, can I just draw your attention to the recommendation, which is to award the contract for a health improvement service to a single provider for a period of 3 years, with the option to extend for a further 3 years on an annual basis, as far as I understand that. Yeah. You all understand that?
Yes.
All happy to support the recommendation?
Yes.
Thank you very much. That's unanimous.
Nida, would you like Ruth to say who you... I don't know if you can announce it.
Yes, please.
So I'm very pleased to be able to say that the contract's been awarded to Live Well South West. They've been our partners in health promotion in this particular contract for some time now, and they put in an extremely good proposal, which was, as you've got the information on that there, and we're really looking forward to working with them in the future.
Thank you, Ruth. So the contract is awarded to Live Well. All right, that's an organisation that I think we're all familiar with. Fine, thank you. Right, we'll move on then to, thank you, Ruth, that's very kind of you, thank you. Move on to the next item then, which is the annual Treasury Management Report. And can I ask you, please, Councillor Darcy, to present this year's report, please?
Thank you, Leader. Colleagues, the purpose of this report is to set out a summary of Treasury management activities for the financial year ending in 31st of March 2017. During the year, the Council increased its net debt outstanding by 44 million. The borrowing was incurred to support the financing of the Council's current capital programme. Most of the borrowing was undertaken on a short-term basis, costing on average 0.05%. Full details of the individual elements of the borrowing are set out in the paper. The paper also sets out the details of the Council's cash investment activity. In summary, the investment activity outperformed the budget target and generated interest returns of £180,000 more than was actually budgeted for. Interest costs incurred as a result of borrowing activity were below budget by some £600,000, resulting therefore in a positive return in excess of £700,000 for the General Fund, which helped to balance the Council's books for the financial year 16-17. I've previously presented that to Cabinet at a previous meeting. The Council is also obliged to report performance against a range of indicators as set out by the Chartered Institute of Finance and Accountancy. I'm pleased to advise the Cabinet that the Council is 100% compliant in that respect. So, Leader, in summary, this is a positive report in respect of the Council's Treasury management activities. Andrew Hardingham is here and present and keen, no doubt, to take any questions in respect of this fascinating read, which I'm sure fellow Cabinet members couldn't put down in advance of this meeting. So I'm sure Andrew is eager to take any questions accordingly.
Thank you, Ian. You do the subject a great disservice. Andrew, do you have anything you want to add to that report?
No, Leader, there's nothing that I need to add. The report is as comprehensive as I can make it, covers all aspects of it, so I'm happy to take any questions if members have them.
Yes, then can I ask you one, if I can, Andrew? Clearly, the level of interest rates is something which we would want to, and do, I know, pay particular attention to, but do you think you could just briefly explain how we monitor interest rates generally? What sort of measures do we have in place to keep tabs on the situation, and what is the current view that we take about the likelihood of a rise in interest rates?
Leader, there's a couple of angles, if you like, from which we deal with the monitoring of our both our debt and our investments. We monitor almost on a weekly basis the performance of the money that we have invested, and we monitor very closely the markets in terms of what we can borrow at, so that we can borrow at the most optimal times. Our cash we actually manage on a day-to-day basis, so we're monitoring our cash position daily, and then we monitor the markets very frequently as well. And the Council also employs the services of some advisors who we meet on a regular basis, sometimes just with officers, sometimes with elected members such as yourself as well, and we review the performance of our cash investments, our longer term investments, and we review the opportunities for borrowing to support our capital programme. Those reports are also considered by the Audit Committee, and indeed this report is going to be considered by the Audit Committee later this week. So there's an element of scrutiny to the process as well, and the Audit Committee has non-elected members, independent members, bringing a different dimension to the scrutiny as well on that particular committee. And then we review and we report at a corporate management team level monthly in terms of our performance, and then we share that with Cabinet as part of our quarterly reporting of the revenue monitoring, the capital expenditure and the Treasury on a regular basis. So I think the answer in summary is comprehensive in terms of our monitoring. In terms of the view of interest rates, we are of a view that interest rates have been at as we all know, have been at an historic low for a long period of time. And once you get to the sort of level that interest rates are at, there's probably only one way that they can go, and that's up. The real issue is when that is likely to happen. And we go from sort of milestone to milestone. It was Brexit, then it was the election, then it's something else. So we've taken a view, and our advisors are taking a view that the end of this calendar year may seem a time then we might start to see some movements priced into the market, and interest rates might seek to increase. I think a lot will depend on the outcome of the current government and its approach to Brexit, and how that will impact on markets. So I can't predict, and I wouldn't want to predict, but we will be watching them closely, and we'll bring them to the attention of members when we feel the interest rates are starting to move, and what our plan should be in terms of converting some of our shorter term debt into fixed term longer debt to lock in at as cheaper rates as possible.
Thank you, Andrew. I think it's important that Cabinet members just take note of what Andrew said. We might think this is a sort of dry and dusty subject, but believe me, it has the potential to impact us in quite a major way if we don't take note of what's going on around us. So thank you for that, Andrew, and I just ask that you keep Councillor Darcy and I in the loop at the very earliest moment when we seek and we start to get intelligence around potential rises in interest rates. So thank you for that. Right, Cabinet members, any other points anyone else wants to raise? Other than that, I simply ask you to note the Treasury Management Annual Report for this for 16-17 financial year, and refer the report then to full council for approval. Everyone happy at that? Okay. Thank you very much indeed. That's unanimous. Right, that takes us to the end of the agenda this afternoon. So thank you very much for your attendance. The meeting is closed.